How's it hanging, Jack Tackers, and welcome back to another video for you guys. Today, I'm going to be doing my review for Succession Season 4, Episode 10, which was titled With Open Eyes. And of course, this is the series finale of the show, the very final episode. It's over, and I cannot believe that we're here. I am just in shock at what I just watched, but I'm here to tell you that I really did love this episode. I thought it was an interesting ending, and it wasn't exactly satisfying because, well, let's just talk about it now. Let's just address the elephant in the room. Spoilers here, of course, if you haven't seen the episode, but who is the successor? Of course, that is the ultimate question the show asks, and everyone had their theories, and everyone was wondering who it was going to be, and long story short, it's Tom. Yeah, what? Listen, I'm not upset because I think it's really just brilliant writing, honestly. I mean, especially when Jesse Armstrong explained in the little after show that they do for each episode. Jesse Armstrong, the creator, he says that this show is a tragedy, and a lot of people have compared this to Shakespeare. I think, it takes inspiration from King Lear. And it's very Shakespearean in that way, and it's, tragic. And this was the ultimate sad ending. This was like the worst possible outcome for the characters in the story. But again, from a writing perspective, it's quite brilliant in my opinion. And I think it's just very brutal. It's a very brutal ending. But part of me kind of likes that and has to respect that. I notice just how brutal it is. And it makes me sad because, yes, I love Kendall. I was rooting for Kendall. And at the end of the day, all these people are bad. They are morally bad people. Everyone knows this, of course. But, the show wants you to root for the Roy siblings. It does. You can see it clear as day in this episode when Shiv and Roman and Kendall are all in Barbados and swimming together and making that concoction for Kendall to drink. Which was hilarious, by the way. I loved that scene. It was just great, that happy moment of all the siblings. But you see that you get this happy moment, and then, the rug's kind of taken out from under you, so to speak. And I knew it was coming. I knew something bad was going to happen. It wasn't going to end well for our Trinity, so to speak. And yes, so when they get to the board meeting, everyone votes and everything is going as planned. And then Shiv decides to change her mind and decides to switch her vote. And she doesn't want Kendall to be CEO anymore, it was a very intense scene. I mean, this whole episode was absolutely intense, and I loved it. I mean, my heart was beating throughout the whole episode. But that moment, especially when Kendall's like yelling at Shiv when Roman and him are all in that room together, and Shiv's like, "You can't be CEO because you killed someone." And then Kendall's just like, "No, I didn't." He made up the whole story about the waiter at her wedding, or at least he, wants them to believe that. And then Kendall almost like looked like he was going to kill Roman in that scene. He's like, pushing on his stitches, of course, his wound that he got at the end of the last episode. And it's just very intense, and it was so uncomfortable to watch because you don't want them to go at each other's throats. You don't want them to have this, showdown. But ultimately, Shiv's decision in doing this, they don't make it like really, really clear. But you can kind of infer why she's doing this. And at least in my opinion, the way I kind of understood her decision and what I think she did this for is ultimately so she can be with Tom. I think this is her way of thinking she can stay with him. She's pregnant, and, I'm not going to make a pregnancy hormone joke about her or anything. But, I think she is pregnant, of course, and she wants help. Like, I think she wants kind of a husband figure in her life. And we see at the beginning of this episode, she calls Tom and, asks him like one quote unquote final time to see if he wants to have this relationship with her. And Shiv ultimately is told that Tom's uncertain. He doesn't know for sure. But I think that uncertainty leads Shiv to believe that maybe there's still hope for them. I mean, this is the way I inferred it. I'm not saying this is exactly true, but like, that's the best way I can kind of understand her motives a little bit in terms of why she wants Kendall to not be CEO in that position. Or is it she genuinely thinks he's unfit? Maybe that's the reason. But then you see towards the end of this episode, Shiv and Tom kind of holding hands. So, maybe there is something there. Maybe they can have another spark. But I also kind of doubt it. It's a very complicated situation, of course. But I do think maybe she just wanted to have that kind of hope that her and Tom can kind of get back together. But it's a very really strange thing to think about because I don't know if it's gonna work out for them, but maybe she thinks that, and it is just crazy that this all went down. That Gojo is actually going to acquire Waystar, and this is ultimately I think what Logan kind of wanted though. I think he wanted Waystar to be acquired by Gojo. And there's like a line in here that Roman says where, Roman just thinks that him, Shiv, and Kendall are just like unfit to do it. They're nothing. I think he says something like that when they're all in that room together. And I think that really kind of just shows you that maybe Logan never really wanted any of them to be CEO. Maybe he never wanted any of them to be a successor. That's something else to think about as well. And Roman is just kind of left at the bar at the end of this episode, and his story is basically the way Jesse Armstrong explains it. It ends where it started. This was a bit of a detour in his life. And that's a very interesting way to end Roman's character and his story. He doesn't really want anything to do with the business, I feel like. I don't think he ever really wanted to be CEO either. So that's very interesting. And then Kendall, of course, is just absolutely defeated, walking in the park, looking at the sunset. And that was heartbreaking for me. It really was. I didn't want Kendall to go through this, even though I suspected it was going to occur, because they were showing all those happy moments with the three siblings. And yeah, I don't know. Kendall's going to kill himself probably. I think that's actually likely. I mean, I know we're never going to know for sure, but I'm just going to say I think Kendall is going to kill himself. But that's just my, the ending's kind of open for interpretation in a weird way. It doesn't wrap everything up in a pretty little bow. I mean, it does give us the answer, though, of who the successor is. Again, it's Tom. And Greg, let's talk about Greg for a second. Greg looks like he's just going to be pulled along for the ride. But it sucks. There was so much potential for Greg, I really feel like. And it's so funny how many theories I saw of people saying Greg was going to be the, one on the throne. Bran the Broken. No, Greg the Egg. A lot of Game of Thrones little funny memes I saw comparing Game of Thrones to Succession. And people were like, oh, Succession doesn't have a Game of Thrones ending. Which it didn't. This ending was much better than Game of Thrones. Way better. But yeah, Greg the Egg. He... It didn't work out for him that well in the end. Ultimately, it looks like Tom's going to, save him, but I think he's just going to kind of be a fall guy. I don't think Greg is really going to have that much power in this, kind of new era of Waystar, or Gojo, I should say. And I don't think Greg is really going to be at the top of the food chain, so to speak. I think Tom and Mattson are just going to be kind of, bringing him along for the ride. But it was that moment where Tom and Greg are in the bathroom and Tom hits Greg, but Greg kind of fights back, and Greg is so smart. We see in this episode that Greg is actually low-key a genius. Not a genius, but you know what I mean. And I loved Greg in the earlier seasons. I really did kind of hate him in this season. But I really loved Greg, especially season 1. Greg was the underdog. I loved Greg. But then he kind of became a bit evil. I mean, he was never really a good person. But again, you know what I mean. His morals got worse and worse and worse. And he started to kind of become a little more soulless, as we saw in the season 3 finale with him, fully committing to Tom and yada, yada, yada. But I was thinking, maybe there's something there for Greg. He contacts Kendall and tells him that Mattson is thinking of screwing over Shiv. And of course, we know that that ultimately ends up happening. And Greg really had potential to maybe kind of steer away from Tom a little bit. And it's just absolutely crazy overall that Tom becomes the successor, because Tom started at the very bottom in this episode. He was worried he was going to get sacked. He was worried he was going to get fired, that Mattson was just kind of done with him. And it looked like Greg, it really looked like that theory of Greg becoming the successor was going to happen. It really did kind of seem like that fan theory I saw a lot of people talking about, like, oh, Greg's going to rule it. And I was like, that'd be amazing. It looks in this episode like that was actually going to occur. It doesn't, of course. And yeah, it's just crazy because Tom kind of has that dinner, that talk with Mattson, and Mattson realizes maybe Tom's a better fit for the company moving forward. And that's just absolutely insane. And then we see, that moment when Greg uses the translation app to translate what Mattson is saying. Oh my God, what a genius. Oh, that was awesome. But yeah, Greg's screwed. He really is. He's just going to be at the bottom of the totem pole, in my opinion. That's what I think is going to happen. Yes, he might be technically saved and not fired, but, if something bad comes up, Greg's going to prison, I think. Remember when Kendall was supposed to go to prison in season 2 or whatever? That was, is pretty much going to be Greg, I feel like, if there was a Succession season 5. But there isn't going to be, of course. And that's okay. But overall, I did like the episode. Let me stress that. I thought it was good. I don't think it's the best episode of the show, but it is a solid conclusion. It's just a very sad conclusion, if anything, and it hurt my soul a little bit. But let me hear all your thoughts on this episode down in the comments below. What did you guys think of the ending? Did you think it was good? I wasn't satisfied because I would have preferred it to be Kendall, but in a way I'm kind of satisfied because it was really well written, well acted, of course. Jeremy Strong, holy shit, dude. He is amazing. And also Sarah Snook and, everyone in this episode. Kieran Culkin, he's fantastic in this episode as well. It was just, I don't know. I am stunned that the show's over. You know what I mean? As I'm sure a lot of you are as well. It really is a punch to the gut, so to speak, that it's over. Because I love this show so much, and I'm going to miss it a lot. But there you guys go. That's just kind of my 10 cents on the episode, and yeah, it's absolutely nuts. But yeah, post your thoughts and comments down below. If you liked this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and stay tuned because I'll make some more Succession videos, because I do plan on doing a ranking of all the seasons, even though there's only 4, but I think that'd still be fun. And then I think I might do a top 10 episodes of the show. That'll be a really fun video to talk about, and who knows, maybe this episode will make that top 10 list, who knows. But yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, subscribe for that if you're interested in all, to see those videos. But yeah, I've blabbed on for far too long now. So thank you guys so much for watching, and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you guys in the next one. Check out my Letterboxd and Twitter in the description. I'd really appreciate it. And peace.